let's see how you will get married before your sister. She will never get married before me. Clara was sleeping peacefully with a smile on her face. She had no idea that her life was about to change forever. Tomorrow was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. She was going to marry Ethan, the man she loved with all her heart. Right next to her bed hung the beautiful wedding dress she had always dreamed of wearing, but while she slept, her bedroom door opened slowly. Her mother, Mrs. Evelyn, and her younger sister, Chloe, quietly walked inside. Instead of love, their faces were full of hatred and bitterness. They stood in front of the wedding dress and stared at it angrily. Then, Mrs. Evelyn pulled out a lighter. Chloe smiled a mean smile. In just a few seconds, fire caught the dress and began to burn it up. The expensive cloth crackled in the fire and quickly turned into ashes right in front of them. Instead of panicking, the two women started laughing. Mrs. Evelyn looked at her sleeping daughter and whispered, "Let me see how you will get married tomorrow." Chloe laughed even louder and said, "You will never get married before me." The flames grew bigger, destroying months of planning. Yet, Clara stayed fast asleep, completely unaware of the terrible thing happening in her room. Why would a mother ruin her own daughter's wedding? Why was her sister so set on destroying her happiness? And why couldn't Clara wake up while everything she dreamed of was burning to ashes? The answers to these questions started many years ago, in a story full of secrets, jealousy, betrayal, and a shocking truth. Before we continue, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps us bring you more emotional and unforgettable stories. Many years before the wedding that almost didn't happen, Mr. Marcus and Mrs. Evelyn were known as a happy couple. They were not rich, but they were very happy together. They laughed together, ate together, planned their future, and dreamed of the day their house would be full of children. Every year they hoped for good news, but every year ended in heartbreak. 1 year passed, then 2, then 5, and then even more. The baby they wanted so badly never came. They went to the hospital again and again. They spent a lot of money on tests and treatments. Every time they sat in front of a doctor, they waited nervously for news. But the doctors always told them the same thing: there is nothing wrong with either of you. Just be patient and keep trying. However, being patient became harder every day. Outside the hospital, people kept pressing them. Relatives talked behind Evelyn's back, and some even said hurtful things to her face. "What is the point of a marriage without children?" one woman said during a family party. Another person laughed and said, "Maybe Marcus should get a second wife." Every word felt like a knife in Evelyn's heart. Family gatherings became painful. Whenever someone brought a new baby to a party, Evelyn forced herself to smile, even though her heart was breaking inside. At night, when the house was quiet, she would sit in the dark and cry. Sometimes Marcus would wake up and see tears on her face. He would sit next to her and hold her hand. "Evelyn, please don't do this to yourself," he would say softly. "One day, everything will be okay." But Evelyn would shake her head and whisper, "You say that every year, Marcus. How much longer do I have to wait?" One terrible night, after coming home from another gathering full of insults, Evelyn broke down completely. She sat on the edge of the bed, crying uncontrollably. Marcus rushed to her side. "Evelyn, what happened?" he asked. Through her tears, she looked at him and said, "I can't take this anymore. I am tired of people feeling sorry for me. I am tired of the rumors. I am tired of pretending to be strong." Marcus stayed quiet as she kept talking. "Please, Marcus, let's adopt a child. I don't care where the baby comes from. I just want a child to call my own. I want to be a mother." Marcus lowered his head. This was not a new idea. They had talked about adoption before, but he always hoped they would have their own child. For a moment, he said nothing. Finally, he looked into his wife's tearful eyes and said, "If this will make you happy, then we will do it." Evelyn threw her arms around him and cried even harder, but this time, they were tears of relief. Soon, they quietly started making the plans. To avoid questions and gossip, Evelyn pretended to be pregnant. For 9 months, she acted the part very carefully. She wore loose clothes and stayed away from places that might give away her secret. Then, after 9 months, a beautiful baby girl came into their lives. They named her Clara. The moment Marcus held the tiny baby in his arms, his heart melted. He stared at her little face and smiled. "She is beautiful," he whispered. "She is perfect." Evelyn was happy again almost immediately. For the first time in years, laughter filled their home. They loved Clara deeply and raised her as their own daughter. Then, something amazing happened. Not long after Clara joined the family, Marcus's business started doing better than ever. New business opportunities came out of nowhere. Deals were signed, investments worked out, and money started coming in like never before. Marcus often joked, "This little girl brought good luck into our lives." But deep down, he really believed it. The family was happier than ever. Everywhere Clara went, she brought joy. She became the center of their world. Years passed peacefully until one morning, Evelyn ran into the living room with tears in her eyes. Marcus got worried right away. "Evelyn, what's wrong?" he asked. She handed him a piece of paper with shaking hands. As he read it, his eyes went wide in shock. "You're pregnant?" he asked. Evelyn nodded and started crying tears of joy. Marcus lifted her up into the air and laughed out loud. "After all these years," he shouted. "After all these years." The news spread fast. The whole family celebrated, and everyone was excited. Months later, Evelyn gave birth to another baby girl. They named her Chloe. Marcus looked at both of his daughters and smiled proudly. Holding baby Chloe with Clara standing right beside him, he said, "Now we have 2 daughters. Our family is complete." At first, everything seemed perfect. Both girls were loved, taken care of, and brought happiness to the home. But slowly, things started to change. As Chloe grew older, Evelyn started favoring her real daughter more and more. Small differences quickly turned into big problems that were impossible to ignore. Evelyn would buy expensive gifts for Chloe while ignoring Clara. If Chloe made a mistake, Evelyn quickly made excuses for her. But if Clara made the same mistake, she was yelled at. Marcus noticed this and tried to speak up. One evening, he sat next to his wife and said, "Evelyn, you are treating the girls differently." Evelyn frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. Clara notices it, and I notice it too. You are playing favorites." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Chloe's my real daughter." Marcus stared at her in shock. "And what is Clara?" Evelyn looked away and didn't answer. Things only got worse over time. One day, during an argument, Evelyn said something that left Marcus completely speechless. "Maybe we should take Clara back," she said. "Take her back where?" Marcus asked. "To the orphanage." Marcus jumped to his feet. "Have you lost your mind?" he shouted. "That child has lived in this house for years. She calls us Mom and Dad." Evelyn stayed stubborn. "Chloe should come first. Both of them should come first." Marcus replied angrily. "They are both our daughters." But Evelyn refused to listen. As the years went by, Clara started noticing the painful difference. Chloe got beautiful clothes, expensive gifts, and endless praise. Meanwhile, Clara was expected to clean, cook, and do most of the house chores. Whenever guests visited, Evelyn proudly showed off Chloe while Clara quietly worked in the background. Sometimes, Clara would sit alone and wonder why her mother treated her differently. She loved her parents, but she couldn't understand why her mother was so cold to her. One evening, after watching Chloe get another expensive present, Clara quietly walked up to Marcus. "Daddy," she asked softly, "did I do something wrong?" Marcus looked confused. "Why would you ask that, sweetie?" Clara lowered her eyes. "Sometimes I feel like Mommy doesn't love me the way she loves Michelle." Marcus's heart broke into pieces. He pulled her into a warm hug and said, "Never think like that, Clara. You are my daughter, and I love you very much." Clara nodded, but deep inside, she still had so many questions. As the two girls grew older, one became more and more spoiled, while the other learned to suffer silently. Even though Clara couldn't explain why, she often wondered if she truly belonged in the family she called her own. As time went on, the two girls grew into young women, and the difference between them became clearer every single day. Clara grew up to be a kind, respectful, and hard-working young woman. She greeted everyone with a big smile and treated both young and old people with respect. Whenever someone needed a helping hand, Clara was always the first to step up. She never complained about all the work put on her shoulders. Even when life seemed unfair, she stayed humble and grateful. Everywhere she went, people talked about how wonderful she was. Neighbors loved her. Friends respected her. Even people who didn't know her found it very easy to like her. "That girl has such a good heart," people would often say. Any family would be lucky to have her as a daughter-in-law. Clara would just smile and thank them politely. On the other hand, Chloe also grew up into a very pretty young woman. She had striking looks, and she knew it very well. Unfortunately, being spoiled for years completely ruined her character. She felt like she deserved special treatment everywhere she went. She looked down on people she thought were beneath her and got angry whenever things didn't go her way. Whenever someone tried to correct her behavior, Mrs. Evelyn immediately jumped in to defend her. "My daughter did nothing wrong," Evelyn would always say, even when Chloe was clearly in the wrong. Because of this, Chloe almost never admitted her mistakes. She became entitled, arrogant, and extremely hard to please. The more people praised Clara, the angrier and more bitter Chloe became. At family gatherings, relatives would often compare the two girls without realizing how much damage their words were doing. "Clara is such a wonderful young woman," one guest would say. "She is so respectful and hardworking." Another person would add, "Any man who marries her will be truly blessed." Chloe would sit there silently, forcing a fake smile while burning with anger inside. After the guests left, she would run straight to her room and complain to her mother. "Why does everyone always talk about Clara?" she asked one evening. "Am I invisible?" Mrs. Evelyn let out a heavy sigh. "People just don't see how special you are the way they should." Chloe crossed her arms. "They act like she is better than me." Evelyn's face turned cold. "You are not below anyone, especially not Clara." The older the girls got, the more obvious their differences became. When young men came to visit the family, many of them were drawn to Clara's sweet and gentle personality. They liked her beauty, but it was her kindness that really won them over. Some openly said they wanted to get to know her better, while others sent messages through family friends. Chloe noticed every single one of them. Every compliment given to Clara felt like a direct insult to her. One afternoon, after another visitor spent most of his time talking to Clara, Chloe completely lost her temper. "Why does this keep happening? Why does everyone always pick her?" Mrs. Evelyn placed a comforting hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Don't worry, your time will come." But deep down, Evelyn herself was starting to hate Clara. What started years ago as showing favoritism had slowly turned into something much darker. Mother and daughter started feeding into each other's jealousy. Whenever Chloe complained, Evelyn encouraged her instead of correcting her. Whenever Evelyn felt bitter, Chloe agreed with her. Together, they convinced themselves that Clara was somehow stealing the attention that belonged to Chloe. Neither of them wanted to admit that people simply loved Clara because she had a good heart. Instead, they blamed her for every single disappointment in their lives. The bond between mother and daughter became dangerous. Almost all their conversations were about Clara, and their frustration grew stronger year after year. Without even realizing it, both women were letting jealousy poison their hearts. While bitterness was growing in one part of the family, something beautiful was about to happen in Clara's life. One day, Clara met a man named Ethan. Their first meeting was completely unexpected, but from the second they started talking, they felt an instant connection. Their conversation flowed so easily, almost like they had known each other for years. Ethan fell for Clara's warmth and honesty. Clara, on the other hand, really admired how kind and humble he was. As they spent more time together, their feelings grew stronger. They talked about their dreams, their fears, and their plans for the future. Every conversation brought them closer and closer. One evening, while sitting together, Ethan looked at Clara and smiled. "Do you know something?" he asked. Clara laughed softly. "What?" Ethan shook his head. "Every day I spend with you makes me realize just how special you are." Clara looked down shyly. "Special how?" "You have such a good heart," Ethan replied. "That is very rare." Clara smiled as a warm feeling spread through her chest. Their relationship moved fast. The more Ethan got to know Clara, the more sure he was that she was the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. He admired her strength, her humility, and the way she stayed kind despite everything she went through. Eventually, he made up his mind. He wanted to marry her. One day, Ethan came to the family home to officially introduce himself and ask for Clara's hand. Mr. Marcus welcomed him with open arms. Right from the moment they met, Marcus could see how sincere the young man was. After listening to Ethan talk about Clara, Marcus smiled proudly. "You have my blessing," Marcus said. "All I ever wanted was to see my daughter happy." Ethan thanked him with deep respect, but while Marcus was overjoyed, Mrs. Evelyn and Chloe felt completely different. The moment they realized Ethan was rich, handsome, successful, and deeply in love with Clara, jealousy took complete control of their hearts. After Ethan left, Chloe could barely contain her anger. "Why does she always get everything?" she whined. Mrs. Evelyn stayed quiet for a moment before answering, "Life isn't fair." From that day on, the hatred inside both women only grew stronger. Soon, wedding preparations began. Family members celebrated the great news, friends sent their congratulations, and the whole house was filled with excitement. Every new plan seemed to bring even more joy to Clara and Ethan. Ethan did everything he could to show his love. He made sure every little detail showed just how much Clara meant to him. Whenever she felt worried about something, he comforted her. Whenever she smiled, his heart felt happy. Watching their relationship grow only added fuel to Michelle's jealousy. Every gift Ethan bought for Clara felt like another painful reminder of what Chloe didn't have. Every compliment given to Clara only made Chloe hate her even more. While guests were eagerly looking forward to a joyful wedding, Chloe was being completely eaten up by jealousy. And standing right beside her, encouraging those bad feelings instead of stopping them, was Mrs. Evelyn. Neither of them realized that their growing hatred was pushing them toward a decision that would change all of their lives forever. As the wedding day got closer, everyone around Clara was bursting with excitement. Friends called every day to check on the plans. Relatives kept talking about how beautiful the ceremony was going to be. Ethan could hardly wait to marry the woman he loved with all his heart, but while happiness surrounded Clara, a dark storm was brewing inside Michelle's heart. The more she watched the wedding preparations, the more miserable she felt. Every decoration felt like a personal insult. Every congratulations message felt like an open wound. Every smile on Clara's face made her even more bitter. One evening, just a few days before the wedding, Chloe sat in her room crying. Mrs. Evelyn walked in and found her staring blankly at the floor. "What is wrong?" Evelyn asked. Chloe looked up with tears streaming down her face. "Everything is wrong," she replied. "My whole life has been unfair." Evelyn sat down beside her. "What do you mean?" Chloe wiped her tears angrily. "Clara always gets everything. Everyone praises her, everyone loves her, and every good thing happens to her. And now, she is marrying a man like Ethan while I have nobody." Evelyn listened quietly as her daughter poured out all her frustration. "I am your real daughter. I should be the one everyone celebrates. I should be the one getting married first. Why does Clara always come first?" For a moment, Evelyn said nothing. A loving mother would have corrected her daughter. A wise mother would have reminded her that jealousy only destroys things. But instead, Evelyn's face turned cold and hard. "You are right," she said quietly. Chloe looked up, surprised. "What?" Evelyn nodded slowly. "You are right. Life really hasn't been fair to you." Chloe's eyes went wide. "So you see it too?" Evelyn let out a deep sigh. Ever since Clara entered this family, Everything has been all about her. The conversation went on late into the night. Instead of dealing with their own bitterness, they blamed Clara for all their unhappiness. They convinced themselves that she was somehow responsible for everything they lacked in life. With every single word they said, their jealousy grew stronger. Eventually, a terrible idea entered their minds. At first, neither woman dared to say it out loud, but both were thinking the exact same thing. Finally, Chloe broke the silence. What if the wedding never happens? Evelyn looked at her daughter. Neither of them said a word for several seconds. Then, Evelyn slowly said, "If there's no wedding, there's no marriage." Chloe's breathing got faster. Exactly. A dangerous, wicked smile appeared on Evelyn's face. Before the night ended, they had made up their minds. The wedding was not going to happen. No matter what it took, they were going to stop it. On the evening before the wedding, the house was buzzing with activity. Everyone was busy making final preparations. Clara was excited, but also very nervous. She could barely eat her food. She just kept talking about Ethan and the future they were going to build together. As she sat in the dining area, Chloe secretly traded a look with her mother. Earlier that day, they had gotten a drug made to make someone sleep deeply for many hours. When nobody was looking, they quietly slipped it into Clara's drink, completely unaware. Clara picked up the glass and drank it. A short time later, she started feeling strangely tired. "I don't know why I feel so sleepy," she said, rubbing her eyes. Mrs. Evelyn forced a fake smile. "You're just tired from all the wedding preparations. Go get some rest." Clara nodded. "You're probably right." She gave Mr. Marcus a goodnight hug and walked up to her room. Within minutes of lying down, she fell into an unusually heavy sleep. Hours later, long after the rest of the house had gone completely quiet, Mrs. Evelyn and Chloe slowly opened Clara's bedroom door. They stepped inside and stared at the beautiful wedding dress hanging nearby. That dress represented everything they hated. It represented Clara's happiness, her future, and everything they felt should belong to Chloe instead. Mrs. Evelyn pulled out a lighter. Chloe stood right next to her with a wicked smile on her face. The flame touched the fabric. Within seconds, fire began spreading across the gown. The expensive cloth crackled as it burned. The flames grew bigger and bigger until the dress was completely swallowed up right before their eyes. Clara stayed fast asleep, completely unaware. Evelyn looked at her sleeping daughter and whispered coldly, "Let me see how you will get married tomorrow." Chloe laughed, "You will never get married before me." They stood there watching the destruction with total satisfaction. When the dress was turned into nothing but ashes, they quietly left the room, believing they had won. Morning arrived. The wedding day was finally here. Excitement filled the entire house. The makeup artist was among the first people to arrive. Smiling, she asked to see the bride so they could start getting ready. A maid was sent upstairs to wake Clara up. A few moments later, a horrifying scream shattered the joyful morning. Everyone froze. The scream echoed through the whole house. Family members rushed upstairs immediately. The maid stood trembling inside Clara's room, pointing at the floor. Where the beautiful wedding dress had been hanging just hours before, there was now nothing left but burnt cloth and ashes. Confusion instantly turned into total chaos. People started shouting, and questions filled the air. At that moment, Clara slowly opened her eyes. Her head felt unbearably heavy, and a terrible headache was pounding in her skull. She sat up, struggling to understand why everyone was gathered in her room. "What is happening?" she asked weakly. Nobody answered her right away. Then, her eyes fell on the ashes. Her eyes widened in shock. "My dress," she whispered. "What happened to my dress?" Tears immediately filled her eyes. Months of planning had vanished in an instant. Her dream wedding dress was completely gone. Marcus stared at the ashes in utter disbelief. But unlike everyone else, his mind immediately went to a specific place. He remembered the jealousy, the endless arguments, and the deep bitterness that had consumed his wife and daughter. Slowly, he turned around to face them. Mrs. Evelyn and Chloe looked away, avoiding his eyes. Did you do this? He asked. Neither woman answered. His voice grew louder and harsher. I asked a question. Did you do this? The room went dead silent. Finally, Mrs. Evelyn lifted her head. To everyone's absolute shock, she showed no regret at all. Yes, she said. Gasps filled the room. Clara stared at her mother in total disbelief. What? She whispered. Chloe stepped forward. We did it. Mr. Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. Why? He demanded. Mrs. Evelyn folded her arms. Because I will never allow an orphan to get married before my own daughter. Those words hit Clara like a heavy blow. The room suddenly felt tiny. Her heart started pounding fast. An orphan, she repeated softly, her voice trembling. What do you mean by orphan? Nobody said a word. Clara slowly turned to Mr. Marcus. Daddy, she said, what is she talking about? Mr. Marcus lowered his eyes. Clara felt a rush of fear rising inside her. Tell me, she begged. Please tell me what she means. Tears filled Marcus's eyes. For years, he had protected this secret. For years, he had prayed the truth would never hurt her. But now, there was nowhere left to hide. He took a deep breath and told her everything that he told her about the long years he and Evelyn struggled to have a baby. He told her about the adoption. He told her how they brought her home as a tiny baby and raised her as their very own. Clear's throat, he told her how much joy she had brought into their lives, and he made sure she knew that he had always loved her as his true daughter. Every single word felt like a huge earthquake tearing Clara's world apart. The life she thought she knew suddenly felt completely fake. Questions flooded her mind. Who was she really? Where did she come from? Why had nobody ever told her the truth? Tears poured down her face. So, my whole life has been a lie? She asked. No. Marcus replied quickly. You are my daughter. Nothing will ever change that. But Clara could barely hear him. She was completely overwhelmed. The burnt wedding dress, her mother's betrayal, and the shocking truth about her adoption all crashed into her at once. Feeling like she couldn't breathe, she turned around and ran out of the room. Damar. Marcus called after her. Ethan called out too. Family members shouted her name, but she just kept running. She rushed outside, jumped into her car, and drove away. Her phone rang over and over, but she ignored every call. Tears blurred her eyes as she drove with no destination in mind. For the first time in her life, Clara had no idea who she really was. Back at the wedding venue, guests had already started arriving. Some were chatting excitedly about the wedding, while others were taking their seats. But as time passed, whispers slowly began spreading through the crowd. People started noticing that something was wrong. Family members were making frantic phone calls, and all bridal preparations had suddenly stopped. Nobody seemed willing to explain what was going on. Soon, rumors started passing from one guest to another. I heard something bad happened at the bride's house. Someone said her wedding dress was destroyed. Is the wedding cancelled? The confusion grew worse with every passing minute. Ethan was getting ready for the happiest day of his life when one of his relatives rushed in with disturbing news. At first, he refused to believe it. What are you talking about? He asked. Then, they told him the full story, the burnt wedding dress, the shocking confession, and the truth that Clara was adopted. Ethan stood there frozen. His heart ached thinking about the pain Clara must be feeling. Without wasting another second, he started calling her phone right away. Once, twice, 3 times. He kept calling, but Clara didn't answer. She was just too heartbroken to speak to anyone. She drove aimlessly, her tears refusing to stop. Her mind replayed every cruel word she had heard that morning. Suddenly, her phone rang again. This time, she glanced at the screen and saw Ethan's name. Her hand shook. After waiting a second, she finally answered. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan's voice came through. Clara? Just hearing his voice made fresh tears roll down her cheeks. Ethan, she whispered. I'm sorry. Sorry for what? He asked gently. The wedding is ruined. My dress is gone. My family lied to me my whole life. I don't even know who I am anymore. Ethan closed his eyes. Hearing her pain broke his heart into pieces. Listen to me carefully, he said. Nothing has changed. Clara laughed bitterly through her tears. Everything has changed. No, Ethan replied firmly. You are still the woman I love. You are still the woman I asked to marry me. You are still Clara. She stayed quiet. Where are you? He asked. Please, tell me where you are. After a long pause, Clara finally gave him her location. Stay right there, Ethan said immediately. Don't move. I'm coming to get you. Less than an hour later, Ethan arrived. The moment he saw Clara sitting all alone inside her car, looking lost and heartbroken, his heart nearly shattered. He walked up to the car and opened her door. The second Clara stepped out, she burst into heavy tears. Ethan wrapped his arms around her and held her tight. For several moments, neither of them said a word. She just cried against his chest. I don't know who I am anymore, she sobbed. Ethan gently lifted her face and looked straight into her eyes. You are the exact same woman I fell in love with, he said softly. Nothing your mother said can change that. Nothing about your past can change that. You are still the kind, beautiful, and strong woman I chose. Clara stared at him. You don't care that I was adopted? Ethan shook his head. Not even a little bit. The woman I love is standing right in front of me. That is all that matters. For the first time since leaving home, Clara felt a small sense of peace. Then Ethan smiled and said something she never expected, and by the way, we are still getting married today. Clara blinked in shock. What? You heard me. The wedding is not cancelled. Ethan, my dress is completely gone. Then we'll get another one. There isn't enough time. Watch me. Ethan pulled out his phone and started making calls right away. He called the fashion house that made the original dress. When someone picked up, he spoke without hesitation. My bride needs another wedding dress right now. I don't care how much it costs, I will pay double, triple if I have to. Just make it happen. The fashion house jumped into action immediately. In no time, arrangements were made for a stunning replacement gown, but Ethan didn't stop there. Knowing that going back to the house would only hurt Clara more, he moved all the bridal preparations somewhere else. He booked a beautiful hotel room, redirected the makeup artists, had the stylists rush to the new location, and got friends and helpers working together to save the day. What seemed completely impossible just hours ago was slowly coming together. Every problem that popped up was solved one by one. And with every passing moment, hope came back. While Ethan was fighting to save the wedding, another big battle was happening back home. Marcus couldn't hold his anger in any longer. Years of frustration and disappointment finally blew up. He stared at Mrs. Evelyn and Chloe with heartbreak and anger in his eyes. I cannot believe what you two have done, he said. Neither woman said a word. That girl did nothing but love this family. She called you mother. She called you sister. And this is how you repay her? Evelyn lowered her head. For the first time, she had nothing to say to defend herself. You almost ruined her entire life. Marcus continued. You almost destroyed her happiness. Chloe started crying. Dad, we're sorry, don't call me that right now. Marcus snapped sharply. Sorry is not enough. Evelyn finally tried to speak. Marcus, enough, he shouted. I have defended Clara for years. I watched you mistreat her. I watched you break her heart, but today, you crossed the line. His voice shook with deep emotion. Get out of my house. Both women froze. What? Evelyn whispered. You heard me. Leave. Marcus, please, leave, he shouted again. When neither of them moved, Marcus called security. A few minutes later, they were escorted right out of the house. As they stood outside holding their bags, reality finally set in. Chloe cried uncontrollably while Evelyn sat quietly staring into space. For years, jealousy had controlled their minds. Now, they were paying the heavy price. They wanted to destroy Clara's happiness, but in the end, they only destroyed their own peace. Hours later, the wedding everyone thought was cancelled finally began. Guests who had heard the wild rumors were shocked when they saw that the ceremony was still going on. One by one, they took their seats. Then came the big moment. Clara stepped into the venue wearing her new wedding dress. A huge gasp went through the entire crowd. She looked radiant, beautiful, and stronger than ever. Many guests could barely believe their eyes. After everything that happened, she still stood tall. Ethan waited at the altar with tears in his eyes. As Clara walked toward him, every painful moment of the day seemed to fade away completely. Their eyes met, and both of them smiled. Soon, they stood before everyone they loved and exchanged their vows. They promised to support each other through every challenge and love each other through every season of life. And when they were finally pronounced husband and wife, the whole room burst into loud applause. Love had won. Jealousy had failed. The wedding they tried so hard to stop became even more beautiful because of everything it had overcome. After the wedding, Clara and Ethan settled into their new life together. Despite everything that happened, Clara's heart remained soft and kind. She carried pain, but she refused to carry hatred. One day, the couple went to visit Mr. Marcus. Ever since he kicked Evelyn and Chloe out, he had become much quieter. The betrayal was still heavy on his heart. During their visit, Clara sat next to him and held his hand. "Dad," she said softly. Marcus looked at her. "There is something I want to ask you." "Anything, my daughter." Clara hesitated for a second before speaking. "Please forgive them." Marcus's face changed right away. "Clara. Please," she continued gently. "What they did was wrong, very wrong. But I don't want this family to stay broken forever." Marcus let out a deep sigh. "After everything they did to you?" Clara nodded. "Holding on to anger will only bring more pain." A few days later, Evelyn and Chloe were invited to meet with them. The second they saw Clara, both women broke down into heavy tears. Chloe fell straight to her knees. "I am so sorry," she cried. "I was jealous. I let my jealousy completely control me." Evelyn's voice shook as she spoke. "Clara, I don't deserve your forgiveness. I failed you as a mother. I hurt you when I should have protected you." Tears poured down her face. For the first time ever, her regret was 100% real. Clara listened quietly, then stepped forward and gave them a warm hug. The room filled with tears, and even Marcus struggled to hold back his emotions. Eventually, after a lot of begging, Marcus agreed to let them back into the family, but even though forgiveness was given, some scars remained. The trust that was lost could not easily be brought back. Marcus could never completely forget what they had done. He treated them with respect, but the close bond they once had was damaged forever, and so, the family moved forward carrying a very important lesson. They learned that family is not built by blood alone. It is built by love, loyalty, sacrifice, and how we choose to treat each other. They learned that jealousy can destroy relationships, happiness, and even whole families. Most importantly, they learned that forgiveness does not erase the past, but it gives people a chance to build a much better future. And from that day on, Clara chose to live not as a victim of betrayal, but as a woman whose love was way stronger than the hatred that once tried to destroy her.